Tactical 40K. I'm giving you another update because we're still waiting on some of our components for our table, so we'll get that going once I get here. All right, but we are almost complete with the Raven Guard army finally. I've got my scepters almost fully painted. I got a couple of them. These guys still got a few things that need to happen, some decals, a little bit of some washes. For those two, I'm still working on this guy. He's got a few things I got to do to him. I got to go back over him. So he's my last guy. The Inceptors will be painted. They'll be done. And then on to Reavers and some of the other guys. But they're, things are built. I'm looking for two things, which I got something cool that's going to happen. So my final list, which I'll probably go over in another video. If you're keeping track, you kind of already know what the gist of what I'm doing. But I needed some tanky stuff to take down some of the high toughness things, right? And just have maybe some things to draw some fire to. So I wanted to go with a kind of a repulsor. I was looking at like the Executioner. I was looking at the, what do they call that? Let me pull this thing up real quick, because there's a number of tanks, and for some reason in my mind I get them kind of conflated in my head here and there. What's the Lancer? Yeah, I think Gladiator or Lancer, I believe. Forgive me, I'm having a brain fart when it comes to this right now. But anyway, I got an Impulsor, and they're on the same haul, so I'm going to do a conversion kit. Save me about, I don't know, probably $30, maybe even half, because you can't even find these things right now, hardly, it seems like. So I'm going to convert it, and we're going to do, I had the list on my phone, which I'm recording on right now. But so we're going to do it the regular repulsor, and the reason being is because you can fit more guys inside, and it still has some firepower onto it. It's pretty tough. Then we have the Gladiator, and I didn't know if I was going to do there's 3 different variants there, and I think what I put down was the Lancer, because I wanted that big gun. It's like a strength, it's either 14 or 16 or something like that. But I wanted those, so I'll have 2 tanks. I'm going to convert the Impulsor. I might do a video on that because it's kind of cool how you can convert. So if you have an Impulsor laying around, because remember those boxes you used to get, you're like, what do I do with this Impulsor? I guess it's a cool transport. I can do a few things, but I didn't really want it. So I just got it here. I haven't even really finished it from my last box set. But now I'm like, oh, dang. All right, well, let's convert this bad dude. So we're going to convert that. And those are the 2 things I'm missing, the 2 tanks. And I got a 2,000 point Raven Guard army that's based upon mainly Phobos stuff, the ability to infiltrate, move off the board, pre-move, and during the game, deep strike, overlapping fields of fire, the fire maneuver, having supporting elements, which is cool. The Invictors do that, so if you have units that are really close to it and they get fired upon, you can fire back. There's some interesting stuff that go on with this. I'm not saying it's going to be the best, because I've been watching a lot. I've been keeping track of the meta, and that's another thing I'm going to talk about in this video is what's going on and why I don't think it's really that much of a concern. But anyway, so I don't know how this army is going to play out. We're going to get it together. We're going to head up to the city. We're going to play against whatever. We're just going to go to an open game and just play. But once we get these tanks. Otherwise, if I get my Impulsor kind of put together, I might do like a jump captain, because I have that Cave-in Shrike unit still from the box, so I have 2. So I was like, well, maybe I'll do the jump captain. I think I've talked about that before. What do they call it? I can't remember, but it's just a captain with a jump pack. So if I don't get that other tank in there, I might just throw him together and do that, but it doesn't go with what I'm trying to do here. So I'm trying to wait for that repulsor so that I can go in there, and that's with my first list, see how that operates against a couple of different armies, and see if it's competitive, and then we can tweak and adjust, because I got some other thoughts too. If that doesn't work, some other complementing units that could really help out. Okay, is there anything else I need to touch on with that? So we'll go over our list later in another video. I got these guys, they're almost painted. I got to paint the Reavers, and then we got to paint the Invictor, Warsuit, Librarian, and then we're pretty much good to go. I got to convert the Impulsor, and then get the repulse, or not the impulsor, and then the repulsor, actually, whatever that is. What is it? What's the official name of that thing? Primaris repulsor, that's what it is. So anyway, there's some interesting cool things about that. Maybe we'll go over some of these units, especially the tank units. But the meta, let's talk about the meta right now. So been a lot of hoopla about like GSE and Eldar and all, and their win rates. And yeah, they're significantly tough armies. There's also, I just watched the great game between Eldar and Chaos Space Marines, and it was right down to the wire. But anyway, here's what I think we don't need, like some balance in the game at the current state. One reason is there are so many ways to build lists right now in various armies, and people are still experimenting. They're still putting together things, because the way 10th edition has been laid out so far, there's just a plethora of ways to put an army together as opposed to 9th. It's, to me, it feels like it's significantly less restricted. Having said that, this goes along with that. The other reason I don't think there's things to worry about is because there's a lot of guys that have lists built up, they can't field them. Me being one of them, but there's other guys too, because the availability of units that they'd like to carry is just not there. And one of the reasons I think is the Games Workshop didn't really anticipate that demand, even though they made these units stronger. When 9th edition, especially when it comes to, like, let's say Marine tanks, just for example, you could have picked those up. I've seen them in the secondary market all over the place because nobody really wanted them in 9th edition. I mean, maybe if you were like Iron Hands or something like that, or whatever, you might have like a transport or something. But all of a sudden, you come in the 10th and they're worth a darn, and you kind of need something to be able to take on monsters, vehicles, toughness 10 and 12, whatever things, the creatures that you might come across, and be able to put fires upon them from range. I mean, we have stuff that if you can get up in their face that we can do some damage, but at range you kind of need some firepower. So all of a sudden these tanks come in to play now. So people rush and they get all this stuff, or they try to, and now there's just nothing left in the market. So you're people have these lists built up. I'm just talking specifically Space Marines, really that example was, but there's other various units that are in other armies that are hard to come by. So people are either experimenting with their list, still putting together things, or people have lists they can't really field. So when they go to play a tournament, they might have a list that they not really want to play, but they kind of it's either put this list together and play or don't play at all, right? Or play just friendly games. So they just bring units they may not want to really field in a competitive army list. Like I just mentioned, it's like, well, I'll just take this jump captain. Not that he's not bad, not that he's pretty good, but he's not in the niche. And in 10th edition, you have units that are niche units, especially in the Space Marines. You have units that do certain things that are good at certain things. And right now I have a lot that are good at one thing, but I need some that complement that in various other ways to have the, I guess military term, the combined arms force. So if I have to not have that, then I'm going to have to lean on certain tactics more heavily and just kind of play without what I would consider a significant portion of my strategy. And I know there's a lot of guys that are like that. So I'm saying we don't need like any kind of balance right now. I know people are crying about it, but to me it's like we got to let this thing play out for a little while. And I hate when things are constantly changing. I want to buy like the data cards and just have the data cards and not have to worry about everything just changing. Hopefully if they do, they just change points on certain things. But I like things set in stone, because if I understand my enemy, if I understand how armies play, then I can tailor my army. As long as I have units that are able to work in that niche, I can tailor my army to that. But anyway, we need, if at the very minimum, let this thing play out. Let the kind of supply chain build back up so people can get these units and get them painted and put them into play, and see how that changes things. And as people experiment with various lists and units, we can see how things work out. I know I have a couple of variations of my list that I want to try. Like I said, if I want to try it this way, see how it works with certain enemies, certain armies, And then I have a few other things that might make my army a little bit faster, or a little bit more tailored to holding objectives. And then I have another one that's a little bit more stealthy. Right now I think with what I have, I've got a good balance of heavy firepower, but also forward board movement or projection early, like getting things in people's faces quickly, and complementing fires. Maybe not the strongest list in the world, but definitely something that can score points and win games. But I'm probably not going to go tabling a bunch of people or anything like that. Anyway, so basically, to sum this update up, sum this video up, is, hey, I got my Raven Guard army almost completely completed, finally. We're got our table almost done, because we're going to do all these other videos. And then don't worry about the meta. Don't sweat it, bro. Don't sweat it. Look at ulterior waves, like I'm going to do with this impulsor. If you got impulsors later on, I can turn them into tanks. Wait for Games Workshop, the supply chain. Plus, if you're a Space Marines player, which I am, you have things that are coming out, which sucks, because you know what, I was looking at scout bikes, and then they just got axed. We just got the axe on a number of units. I was like, man, it's like and then that Stalker Hunter, I was looking at that too. I was like, oh man, that might be interesting, but there's not that much flyers in particular. But I was looking at things that were indirect fire weapon, so I was looking at that as a possible means for that. But the scout bike has the ability, the outflank ability, and you have units that are got an OCO2. And I was like, the thing moves quick, you can outflank. It was interesting, but then they're getting axed. But we're getting new scouts apparently. We're getting jump pack intercessors, but hopefully we get something that kind of compares with the Vanguard vets a little bit. Hopefully we get some kind. I know they're axing bikes for outriders and ATVs, which, hey, that's one of my variations of my list of having more of a fast attack, is having some bikes in those ATVs in a squad. But so you have that. You have maybe we'll get some other new units that are more along the lines of that, like a Vanguard vet squad. So you have those intercessors with jump packs. Maybe I don't know, be able to put lightning claws on. I don't know what you can do, but it might be cool. But then you have the Codex. That's what I was thinking of. The Codex coming out. So hopefully we get maybe some detachments for like a Raven Guard type thing, because I guess what it seems like they're going to be playing a little bit more in the lore coming up. So maybe we'll get a Raven Guard detachment. Maybe we'll get a kind of a Raven Guardy unit, maybe even a new character or something. But it'd be interesting to see, because I wouldn't mind. What if we had Battle Line something? What if there's an attachment where you have Battle Line Reavers, or something that made them a little bit better? I don't think they're as bad as they were in 9th edition. I'm going to utilize those guys and put some characters in the Reaver squads and give them some abilities, some enhancements that should kind of bump them up a little bit. Do some, basically they're interdicting units to me at this point. Like what an interdicting unit is, military terminology. Like I said, we're going to do this channel is kind of dedicated to some of that. If you interdict the enemy, essentially you're putting the kibosh in what their main movement or their plan is. Like if they're doing a movement to contact, or they're moving their forces up the board, you're there to stop them, or cause them to culminate, cause them to their plan to be set off earlier than it should be. And because they're looking for your weaknesses, and you want them to give up their strengths early. So you have those units that will get in the fray of things and get them to kind of show their weaknesses right off the bat, and then you have units that can come in and find those gaps in the surfaces and exploit them. So I'm kind of using those Reavers as an interdicting force to go up there and cause the enemy units to kind of have to engage them, kind of show themselves, kind of stifle their get in their OODA loops, stifle their movement, and then hopefully we have some of these other units that are a little stronger that can go in there and do some damage. Not to say they're sacrificial lambs or anything, but anyway, on the new units, the new Codex, it'd be nice to have those jump pack intercessors, or have a battle line unit maybe with an OC at 2 or something like that, where you can put 5 to 10 dudes on there with an OCA2 and really like control objectives, really challenge for objectives. Maybe you have like those intercessors with me with some cool weaponry, thunder hammers, lightning claws, cool things like that. And then the Raven Guard stuff. But I'm really hoping in the Codex that we do have another detachment. And then hopefully those data sheets they'll update the packs they're selling now, because I'm gonna buy some. I was gonna make some, which I might do that. That's another thing. I don't know what you guys prefer so far in 10th edition. Have you guys bought those data sheets, like the hard copies, or have you guys printed them out yourself and laminated them? And if so, what have you found more beneficial? Like, I was thinking, if you go to like a Kinko's and just like blast them out, double-sided, laminate them. I mean, what's the difference, right? But at the same time, the price of Kinko's and lamination, you might as well just buy the data set, the data sheets, right? Unless you can laminate them yourself. But I guess it just depends. I guess it just depends on your situation on that one. But I mean, are you going to be able to get those data sheets? I mean, I guess then if you get in the Codex and you get new units and they come out with data sheets, then you just print them and laminate them yourself and then fold them in with the data sheets. I think that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do with that. But anyway, so there's a lot of rumors going around with that, all these new units for Space Marines. So that's going to be cool. But okay, I'm done with this. We're at 16 minutes. I don't even know what I'm just talking myself to death here. But anyway, God, Inceptors, meteoric descent, boys, because that sounds pretty cool. Put some fires down right in people's faces, and that's another thing. I guess I'm talking about that. I was like, man, meteoric descent. That's gonna be fun to play with those Inceptors. I mean, just to have something that kind of like gets, which I haven't seen in game where people have done that yet, where it's like, okay, let's try this and let's just try to get in their face real quick, or kind of just interrupt your opponent's mindset and get them to have to do things that that you're not necessarily planning to do, And then of course, all of this I'm talking is nothing unless you have the right missions to score points. But I'm talking about more like actually, engaging an enemy instead of actually scoring points. But we got to look at that too. We got to look at certain possible missions and units that are going to be able to score and be able to challenge objectives and be able to get an opponent's backfield, because there's some missions like that, and that's where they're like Inceptors. That's why I was looking at the scout bikes. I was looking at a lot of things that were like, hey, we can get in their deployment zone and get there quickly, be able to score points when necessary. A lot of interesting things, but keep up to date. Once I get all these guys painted, I'll go over them. We'll go over the list. We'll probably do a video on the Impulsor conversion, because that's going to be kind of cool. I find that interesting. And then put this table together, and I've got to get some lighting and stuff, and some terrain, which I've been looking at terrain, trying to get. I almost bought a mat and didn't quite get there. But anyway, we'll talk to you later. Like, subscribe, follow. We're the Beaky Boys, pretty much. Like I said, we're building the Raven Guard army. We're talking tactics. We're talking, if you're in the military or whatever, we're talking off-border type things. We're talking other military type deal, using these guys as kind of examples. But so it's not necessarily just 40K stuff, but there's an overlap there. This is a perfect wargaming game that we do in the military anyway. When we do like off-borders, we kind of play out things, scenarios. This thing gets you thinking. You have to come up with strategy. You have to come up with a scheme of maneuver and then you got to think on the fly during the battle, as various things come up, because your enemy always has a vote on any plan you have. Like, you come up with the best plan in the world, like I'm sitting over here talking about, oh, I'm going to do this and that and that, but your enemy always has a vote. Every action you do causes him to have an action as well, and you got to counter that. But anyway, I'll talk to you later.